And the topic is apologizing. It's something in a funny sort of way. I know we've talked about it in this group before, but uh, this is just the sole. It's the standalone topic for this morning. So I really want to look at it um, in its greater depth, even if that's quite brief. For us all to just consider this topic, maybe as a theme for this week. Um, yeah, I mean, in itself, I think it's a great call up for parents, for all of us to just think, first of all, how good are we at role modeling that to our children? So the role modeling aspect is one thing. Um, just day to day, like how is that in our families, um, with our partners, husbands, wives, and of course, most of all, I mean with them, apologizing directly to them. But yeah, it's uh it's something I know I've had to look at a bit in my own experience. So to be totally honest, when I read about that, probably in the How to Talk So Teens So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk book, which I continue to recommend since the beginning of this group. Um, it really struck a chord with me just about, am I showing up in that way in my family? Am I holding this kind of position of righteousness, which is very tempting for parents, where you're like, the do no wrong dad or the do no wrong mum. And that in some ways you have to uphold this version of yourself, this version of ourselves, um, in all kinds of ways where we think we have to be strong, right, you know, all these things, many other things. Um, yeah, powerful, knowledgeable, many different things that we have to know all the time. We've just got to like have it down in all kinds of ways. And we want to offer our children security. So I get that. I get this sense of like, well, if I'm powerful in all these ways, then my kids will benefit from that because they'll just, it's also like the wisdom of having a clear boundary, that's also part of it. And that is true. However, I do feel like in these times, in our times, there can be something really fundamentally missing if we go too far down that route. Um, the flip side then is showing vulnerability, and opening ourselves up to potential criticism or um, just opening ourselves up. And this topic of apologizing is one of the big ones for that, to really be humble enough to show up in any relationship, but definitely in our family relationships, especially in our family relationships. I think that's where we can most avoid this and get into habits where we just don't do that. We don't make amends. We don't take that time to say, to create that circumstance where we can apologize in any way or make amends. And yeah. So yeah, as parents, we are also in a position of such responsibility and such power. And it must not be abused in those kinds of ways. We mustn't get used to any sort of element of power tripping in our parenting. And so again, the apologizing topic is kind of a call up for that humility to not be all powerful, especially in our relationships with our children, to to be able to have that soft side where they can see that they can see that we're human beings too. We have, I'm not into the version of human beings where we're all like flawed and full of faults and miserable sinners kind of thing. Not at all. But at the same time, we can be real about the fact that we also feel the full range of emotions, especially, or, even, or just including all the horrible ones, all the anger, all the jealousy, um, you know, this is just part of being human, whether we acknowledge that or not. And so, um, yeah, we can readily accept that we get it wrong. Now that is essential. That is just essential role modeling for our children, that we can be real with them about times when we've got it wrong, directly with them or with anybody else, in any other circumstance in life, just so that they can then also allow themselves to be wrong. Um, Many beings in the world today not happy to be wrong at all. And I think we can all count ourselves included, at least at times. So, yeah, it's extremely empowering for children to have a parent who can show up in that way to say, I got that completely wrong. And I'm sorry for that, if that's also needed. And because then it gives our kids also the permission with themselves. This is the main thing, our lives is one thing, but this is a parenting group. So it's really all about serving this younger generation, ourselves included, though. And what a gift to give them, for them to also know that it's okay to get things wrong. And the best way to then proceed is to acknowledge that with the people, if we've harmed anybody in the process, to know that we take responsibility there, and we open up to other people, and we then learn that we always get a good reaction from that, more or less always. Even if someone takes advantage of us, we still are so much more in our power to have, accepted that to ourselves, made those steps, and made the steps to make amends. And actually I was on a call, partly inspired this topic. I was on a call on Clubhouse. I don't know if anyone's into Clubhouse. I'm kind of on the fringes of it, but it may be an exciting platform for discussion in the future. It's a new social media kind of app, just audio, lots of rooms of people talking to each other about various topics. And I was in one room with a friend, and he is a coach for teens in career development, career confused teens. Brilliant coach, great friend in this group, I think, maybe even listening to this live. Hi, Jay. Yeah, and it was really powerful to hear him go through this topic as one of the things that can prevent teenagers from thinking about their careers, and being able to discuss it with their parents. A damaged relationship, that the teen is deeply hurt in some ways by parent inflicted wounds or parent wounds. Parent inflicted all sounds a bit blamey. It's hard being a parent, so I never ever want to be like down on us all for getting it all wrong. No way. It's an imperfect, perfect role for all of us. Perfect education for ourselves and for our kids. So yeah. But yeah, the problem being, from his perspective, like, this is talking about career choices. I mean, but of course it goes into all areas of life. When we've got a teen or a child who feels like their parents haven't taken the time to come back to them and say, and maybe some of you listening to this have a thing where you're like, yeah, recently or at some point, even there's something you keep thinking about. Maybe there's something you keep thinking about from 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and you just keep thinking, wow, I really really fucked that up, kind of thing. and I should apologize, or I should make amends for that with my child. That is like in the way of our relationship somehow. So, if that's the case for you, like this is a great opportunity to acknowledge that and go, wow, maybe I should actually make the time, create the circumstance with my child, or with anyone, to tell them how sorry that has haunted me ever since, to tell them how sorry we are, that we completely mishandled that, or said that, or did this, or whatever it is. But our mind is immaculate in its ability to just keep bringing this stuff back to us when it's unresolved and it's been harmful. Our mind does not let us off the hook. Our conscience, mind, whatever we want to call it, just keeps coming back. So if there is something like that in your relationship with your child from any time in the past, I have no doubt that that's a doorway that we all want to walk through. That it's so much better to open it up, even if it feels very, very frightening to do so. Um, yeah, to make amends in that way. So yeah, in this room, the advice was, first of all, for us as parents to to admit that we were wrong. Like that's the first step, to ourselves and then outwardly to others, to say, I was wrong in that way, and I'm so sorry. And then to find out if the child is prepared to, is able to, if you're able to patch things up, kind of thing. The word here also is forgiveness. So, it's a bit of a heavy word for me, and has its associations, of course, religious associations. But whatever your language is, whether that's a perfect word for you and that fits in with your family culture perfectly, great. Otherwise, just can we work it out? Like, can we have a fresh start? Or there's a lot of different ways you could translate forgiveness if you need to, and if not, then like I say, great. And then also the last step then is to declare your intentions to change, to be different. Like if that circumstance arises again, um, to tell your child, for us to tell our children, I include myself in all of this, that how we intend to be different, what our change is there, how we intend to ensure that never happens again.